Absolutely. So data is only as good as what you can actually get out of it. So you can have all the data in the world, but unless you can actually make it actionable, it doesn't mean a whole lot. So what we found is that when we're actually looking at our data, we have to be able to tell a story with it. And I think that's really important with briefing centers. Briefing centers focus a lot on volume. And they focus a lot on volume as a key metric and solely sometimes as a key metric of success. But you can have all the volume in the world, but if it's not connected to revenue or if it's connected to ungodly lengths of time between the visit and the close, it may not be the best metric that you should be looking at. So we're taking the data and we want to look at it in all sorts of different facets that are a little bit more unique than just what is the volume that's coming through the briefing center? Do we absolutely look at volume? Sure, it's an important metric, but I want to tell a story with it. I want to make sure that I don't just look at volume and say, yes, we did 100 briefings this year and we did 80 last year, so we must be doing well this year. We've done more. No, that's not what we're doing. We're saying, okay, what is volume tied to, right? Is it tied to a certain amount of revenue? Is that revenue then broken down by portfolio segment? We're going to break it down, or when I say portfolio segment, that could mean product segment. We're going to look at it by regionality. So where in the regions, and that could be your sales force may be broken up by regions, may not be. So depending on how your sales force is broken up. Something that I really like to look at is the median length of time between when a customer comes through the briefing center doors and the time that a sales closes. And the reason that I like to look at median versus average is just because we tend to have long sales cycles. So it could be 2-3 years. So it takes out those outliers versus an average. So that's something really important that I personally like to look at that is not often looked at, but is really important when we want to say, how are we actually doing? Are we improving? Are our sales cycles are we closing in on those sales cycles? Are we getting better at closing deals quicker with the inclusion of a briefing center visit? Or when there is not a briefing center visit, what does that length of time look like? So looking at the delta between those two. Lastly, I'm not going to go through all the metrics that we do, but something that I really like to look at is
this is great. Yeah.
We do a pre and post confidence from our customers. So we say, prior to coming to the briefing center, what was your confidence level that Omnicell was the best partner for your healthcare needs? I don't know exactly how it was worded. And then post. And then we look at the uplift in that. And we can do that by visit type. We're obviously going to break that down by visit type, by, again, product segment, by regionality, we do by managers. All of those different things tell that story that when we say, let's look at volume. Okay, so maybe volume has decreased. And that's actually what we've seen. So we've seen naturally with the pandemic, volume has decreased, but we've seen revenue actually double. And our median length of time between a customer coming through the door and our close rate is the shortest it's ever been in the history of Omnicell. So it's all of these things where we know that we've now had the criteria in place. Now I can go back and say, hey, remember steering committee, when we added that criteria, we did the right thing. This was the right criteria. Now, it could have completely told us a different story, and we could have gone back and say, hey, we didn't add the right criteria, and the data told us that we didn't have the right criteria. But that's how we know, right? It's not always about telling the perfect story and saying you've done everything well. It tells us where we need to get better as well.